welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We ask, in what ways can we show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can we mine the wisdom from the experiences of our lives and expand into those challenges? If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs, so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. And if you feel like giving a little back to this free content, please become a patron of the show and receive extra member benefits for less than a coffee a month. Or you can leave a review on iTunes and Facebook, all of which helps the podcast keep going and reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul. Head on over to patreon.com/NTM podcast to find out more. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is, can we really have it all? Have it all. Can you really have it all? Whatever it all means to you.
Whatever it all is, right? Whatever it all is.
Whatever it all is. So before we jump into this super juicy topic and sort of explore story with where both of us have found ourselves in evolutions, as well as where we are at currently and how we see our vision for the future, particularly coming out of COVID and navigating changes, we would love to remind you to jump onto nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe. So once every so often we shoot you off an email and let you know exactly what we've got going on in the world. So if you want to jump into a bundle release or a free download of some sort or a podcast on this topic or an interview somewhere else in the world, then you have the opportunity to know about it. So nourishingthemother.com.au, jump on there and sign up to our tribe.
So I thought we'd tease out this topic because it is one that pops up a lot in our community, is this idea of this kind of sense that there's a conflict perhaps between our evolving sense of self as a woman, who we want to be as a mother, and this tension between one perhaps taking away from the other and us therefore needing to choose, or that we can't do both, or that we somehow need to minimize what we truly want to be because we have these intense years of mothering, and that we put ourselves on the back burner as a result of that. And so we want to tease that out as a concept and, I guess, challenge some of the more dominant narratives around that to get to the crux of I guess, what it is for us, right?
How do you want to start this, Brit? Do you want to tell me what the sentence means to you? Can you really have it all?
What was just come to me as you said that is that classic, yeah, you can have it all, but not at the same time. And I would build beyond that to say, what does it all look like for you? And is it something that is authentic to you, or is it what you think you should do? So very often we can want all these things, but they're not necessarily really deeply intrinsic to us, but rather we've internalized, a supermum kind of caricature, I suppose, of what it means to do it all. When for some of us that's actually not really accurate. That maybe doing it all looks like, yeah, I want to have my own focus on my family and my deep values that I have for my family and my vision for my family, and I want to have a career but I know that I can do those in ways that feel really good for me, that are less about what people are going to think of me as, and more about what feels really inherently true for myself. So I think that there's two ways to look at it. It's the how will I appear, or what should I do, because that's what a woman of my level of education or age or status or whatever you want to say does. And then there's the part of you and what authentically feels like it's unfolding and evolving within you. And I think it's important to get clear on what it's for when you're wanting to answer this question for yourself.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah. You know, I always do this after you go on around. I'm like, yeah, I've got nothing. You keep going.
because, you know, there is such an enormous amount of pressure in our culture around, you know, we see it as soon as, you know, you get married, and then, okay, when you're going to have children, and then once you've had your baby, how quickly are you going to get back to exercise and your job, and when are you going to have your second? And, you know, there's just this enormous track that you're on, and that everybody wants you to meet these points in this track. And at some point, I think a lot of women get to this place where they go, is this actually what I really want, or is it what I think I should be doing? And I would really call on everyone to ask yourself that question often and as early as you can, so that you are not a shell of a woman who looks good on the outside and is all shiny and glossy, and that, you know, everybody will say, look, yeah, what a wonderful life. But that inside you have lost your deep sense of truth and your deep sense of reverence for who you are unfolding to be. Because I really believe that you can do so many things, and that you can do work in the world that you love, and that you can absolutely be the mother that you want to be. And I believe that it happens organically and beautifully, and dare I say it, sometimes with greater ease, when all of those things feel really true for you, because your energy speaks infinitely more powerfully than any kind of trying to fit yourself in some kind of box that you think other people want you to be. And so that is the first step, I think, is this authentic and true, and what I'm yearning to grow into, or is it what I think I should be?
So true. So good. When you reflect on those sentences and apply them to the vision of your own life, where have they been true for you, and how have you moved beyond them?
I think for me it's interesting at the moment, because I'm kind of in this crossroads where I can't even do half of what, you know, has been true for me for 5 years, which is my event. And that expression of myself through that kind of service for the world, like I can't even do it in the form that I've known it for so long. But at the same time, it's been really beautiful to allow the pause to get more clarity on that still being a truth. Because what we can also do is start to attach like beliefs on ourselves and our identities as, well, that's who I am now, or that's how I need to show up because that's what I've built myself upon, and I can't change that. And so we can get stuck in roles. This is absolutely true, I think, for people in corporate too, who can be in this space of, you know, increasing specialization and higher up ladders, and have these roles and these jobs that are so specialist and so niche and so often high profile that it becomes its own trap. You know, like I don't quite know that I want it, but I don't know how to get out of it, and who the hell would I be if I didn't have it? And so I think for me, that's been part of my story is if I'm not that, then what am I? Which is a story also of women when they become mothers. Is I've defined myself by all of these things before now, and now I'm asking myself to rebuild. And so many women hop back into the jobs they didn't always love, but it gave them some sense of validity in our culture. yet it's still not a truth. So back to your question about what it's been like for me. For me, it's almost constant conversation around my expression and my authenticity and where I want to show up. And I mean, right now for me, it really is most authentic in my motherhood and in how I parent and in showing up, nourishing the mother, and that being a really beautiful expression of where I put in a lot of my energy. But I also know that, you know, as feminine beings, we're so inherently creative, and that when we can plug into that power, we can pull in opportunities that we couldn't even dream are possible. And so I also trust that there's an enormous amount of potential. You know, there's so much in potential, and that the more and more we practice trusting that and trusting the breadcrumbs of our visions that we will pull into our, you know, sphere of awareness and our sphere of influence, more and more opportunities to serve in ways that we couldn't always imagine. And so I think that trusting and tuning into that, and getting away from a more masculine, dominant, linear progression, or this idea that I have to have, you know, X, Y, Z planned out and know that this is going to happen in order to be successful, in inverted commas, we get back much more into alignment with ourselves and with what we're trying to evoke within ourselves or from ourselves as a service, or, you know, as a truth of who we are. So it's kind of a roundabout answer on your question, that I think it's just that constant coming back to, where's my creative fire feel like it is? How can that become a service? You know,
it just makes my body sigh hearing you say that. Where now is my creative fire, and how do I fan those flames or honour that? Like, I just think that that is words to live your life by, as opposed to this construct of it looks like one thing all the ways on one track, on one trajectory, on one speed. That it can look like a lot of different shiny objects, as long as they're a truth at the centre of you, they always lead you into a deeper level of purpose and service.
That's it.
I totally, it's 100% where I sit too. So I'm interested also in how you've reframed what might otherwise be considered a loss of your business in this COVID climate of Suburban Sandcastles, where you screen monthly consciousness conversations and documentaries. From a loss to a pause to reevaluate. Tell me about that.
Well, for me, because I think I had a lot of learning when I kept pushing right through my early days when Suey was a baby, like right through all of those events. I kept going. I didn't have a break. And I did a few last year. And I've noticed just that splintered focus, particularly because of the deep research that each one would require, was, you know, brought with it a bit of challenge that I didn't perhaps set myself up that well to meet, particularly when I was running multiple locations. And so it's been in pulling back, it's been pretty insightful for me to figure out what I want to dedicate my energy to and the best way in which to do that. And trusting that in the pause that I will potentially see opportunities that I didn't see before to still give my expression, but maybe in a way that I haven't seen. And I haven't come up with that. I don't know the answer to that yet. But I've been spending this time, instead of seeing, you know, all of the loss of industry or the you know, the economic despair, I've been creating a practice of also looking for innovation, like where are all of the examples of innovation here? And, you know, in what industries that you know, were archaic and slow and didn't move, how has this been like an incubation period for incredible, unprecedented change? And so when I see that that's possible in so many other areas of the world, I also know that it's possible with what I put out in the world. It's just that I'm still waiting for the birthplace or the birth of what that is, which is a very feminine practice. And I think I don't think I could have done this a few years ago, but I think I've been out of like that really masculine way of doing business for long enough that I can allow it, you know, a space of allowing. So I don't quite have answers, but I'm in that place of just stretching into potential and allowing that to be functional. You know?
So when you say you want to bring a lot more insight and clarity into where you spend your energy, what does that mean?
Well, you know, I think that whatever we dedicate our time to, we're also dedicating it away from something else. So because I have like I have a really, really high value on learning, and the expression of that high value on learning has been outward focus. So it's been outward focus through these events and doing that kind of thing. And I've wanted to, two of my goals this year, which I haven't really told anybody about, was to become a better lover and a better teacher. And so by having that pause in that business, it's really, it's asked of me to focus in my immediate influence. So in my influence with my intimate relationship, and the Queen School's like really great for this, in seeing all of the ways in which I'm complicit, right? Like complicit in things that I say I want to change. And in fact, I was funny because my husband and I have almost flipped in that I'm really wanting to focus more like close in our unit and in our kind of sphere, and not really care about the outer world. And I'm always getting frustrated when he starts to talk about politics and stuff. which was me. Like, I mean, I've always held that role of like ensuring that I'm, you know, like ensuring that I'm the one kind of who like has the read on like the world. And now I'm kind of like, no, come back here, right? And so that's part of my more outward focus has come more inward. And in that beautiful conservation that happens in families, that shift in roles is therefore becoming an opportunity for me to practice more of my craft and more of my influence in this space, if you know what I mean. So yes, it might be a loss in terms of my like identity in that expression of myself, but I don't see it as a loss at all in terms of myself. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Just keep preaching, sister. I'm going to keep praying.
But it is, yeah. I think as someone who grew up with intelligence being the prized possession and the mind being prized, you know, academics being prized, and
it's radical. Like it really sounds like this total reclamation of all of those traits and attributes that had been cast out by your family of origin. Yeah.
So I'm in that kind of, I'm in the practice of what I said I wanted to grow into in a really unexpected way, right? And I can also see that, like, I was kind of going, I don't have any films, I don't have enough films coming up, I don't really know what I want this to look like. I certainly got super, said to you last year, I'm like, I'm not doing anything that I'm not excited about.
Yeah, you did. You got super clear on that.
So,
and is that because the energy or the time spent on projects that don't light you up, don't feed you, they drain you? So the output doesn't equal the reciprocal input. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I can see, you know, like all of us, right? Like when you're super inspired about something, it just gives you so much energy that feeds every area of your life. And I know what that feels like. So I want more of that. So therefore I'm saying no to the things that don't do that for me. And I know myself really well. So I just say no now. Like to the point where like for a while there, I'd get requests from people to do certain films. And so I would respond to the market, right? But I would rather niche my market to be more reflective of what lights me up, knowing that that in itself is a beautiful reciprocal flow of like amazing energy. Because yeah, I might like not be for everyone, but that's totally okay with me, because the more I do me and stay in alignment with that, I'll bring in people who also feel in alignment with that. We are going to all feel great together. As opposed to trying to be all things for everybody.
Yeah, no, 100%. I just want to tease out one point that I get like a knot in my stomach about when I heard you say it, and I just thought maybe we could tease that out a little, which...
I'm nervous when you say that. When we're like...
Oh, sorry. I don't mean for you to feel nervous because I fully assume, and in that statement feel like I'm taking accountability for, I know there's something there for me. I just can't put my thumb on what it is.
Okay.
And that's the idea that in order for you to do something new or different, that something has to lose out or have less given to it.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you reckon about that? Because I like the idea of subscribing to that's not a truth, that energy is infinite where you know its source and feeds all areas. So there's never a win-lose. It's just that it all starts to come together rather than separateness, which is, I think, when we separate becomes the belief system around for that to have more, this has to have less because there's only this finite
like it's
resource.
Kind of this scarcity kind of.
Yeah, that it's this finite thing as opposed to, oh, we all grow together. It just all merges as opposed to separates. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess for me, probably I'm looking at it more in a physical sense. Like I'm thinking back to like, for example, when I was still trying to do all the things and still be with the age Pearl is, like my house was a fucking shit show. Like because I was just in constant response mode, in constant like fucking scrambling. And then that affected my relationship because my husband has a higher value on, you know, our house space being, you know, ordered. And so I could see like the you know, the giving to the work and the taking from the home in that regard. But I also see like that, yeah, okay, you could give more to your work and get a cleaner and the cleaner could do that. And like I've tried that too. And I don't know, maybe at the moment I'm also focusing on how do I refine my habits and how do I really put a super like laser focus lens on how I move in my house and so that I am like, you know, more aware of this place and myself in how I show up in this space so that I can, you know, tweak some habits and allow that then to fill everything else. So I guess in a roundabout way, yes, it doesn't have to be like a win-lose, but it's a linking process of seeing how when I do this thing there, how does that serve that rather than take it away from it. Yeah. I kind of didn't really answer your question there because I'm thinking as I'm going around.
I know, because I sprung it on you, but it's always been a sticky point because I think the mass culture says to you, I think the mass culture loves the divide, particularly for women, between motherhood and work. Like you have to choose. Like in order to go gangbusters on work, you have to not be present as a mother, or in order to, or conversely, the, you know, conscious circuit, I'll call it, to give everything that a child needs for full, you know, emotional, mental, physical development, that a mother needs to be fully present for that and therefore can't be present to business because when she's present to business that she's not present in her home. So I actually see both sides of the fence, let's say mainstream and conscious, sprouting the same ideal of win and lose, just that you pick your team, you know? And that's never sat well for me. I think I used to subscribe to it until I felt like I could see this, like, why though? It doesn't have to be. Like,
yeah.
who says it has to be? Who says that? You know, like, I just kind of.
And in fact, and if I'm thinking about even this week, like, and some of the habits that I've tweaked, which I know that you just did actually too. Like, I've set up, for instance, PayPal pings on my, you know, and so that's been an ongoing conversation between my 7-year-old and I about celebrating that, and about how, like, when I, you know, because he's often wanting to, for instance, buy stuff, and I'm constantly talking to him about, okay, well, how are you going to pay for that? And, you know, the best way for you to earn money is to think about how you can create a service that somebody else would love to pay for, and that you then create this beautiful exchange, and you get to get something out of that instead of somebody else. And so my work and me getting these pins through has been a practical, you know, example for him on what that can look like. So then for me, my work is teaching and instilling the very life skills that I want my children to have. So in that way, my work is doing the work of my parenting, you know. And so I can think of examples, heaps of examples, as well, across, you know, many areas of the different kinds of work that I've done on how they're not separate, and how the value of my children being around me when I work and what they get out of that is not something that I would want to take away either. Like if I disappeared to some office somewhere and they never saw what I did, and it was really, really separate, would that be any benefit? Would that be of any more benefit to them? I don't think that it would, because I think we often can have the illusion that if you have this separateness, you'll be 100% work and then you'll be 100% kids. But that's not how our brains work, and that's not how human beings are, because you'll just find something out. You will always be guided back to your highest values. You'll always spend your time doing what you value the most, or doing what you perceive will be most, you know, will be most painful if you don't, right? Like, you know, when I was at work, I would often spend time researching child development, you know, like parenting, like my highest values at the time. I would still find ways to pursue those when I was, you know, working in inverted commas, you know, at my office job. And similarly, when I'm having, you know, time around my kids, and there's something that I'm really determined to learn, that I really want to focus on teaching, or that I really just want to learn to understand, I'm going to spend time with my kids doing that, because we can't escape, like, our desire to grow. So I don't think compartmentalization, because it's an ideal, but I don't think that human behavior responds that way in practice.
No, I don't think so either. I really don't think so either. I mean, the majority of women that you and I both coach, I think, is evident enough of that the separation doesn't make it easier.
No. And I mean, you and I also find, you know, incredibly creative ways to ensure that we're really, like, attuned in our parenting, but at the same time expanding ourselves. You know, just by the amount of books we listen to on Audible, for example.
Yeah. I am a book hound.
Yeah. And if you find ways to squeeze that in every which way.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So, sorry, you go.
Oh, I wanted to throw it back to you now. So on this topic, how would you interpret it? Where would you take it?
Can you really have it all?
Because you're coming off the back of, like, you know, you said to me the other night, like, I'm absolutely peaking.
Yeah.
Because you are like it's full on. Like, you're running the gauntlet.
Yeah. Yeah, not so much that I'm running the gauntlet. It was more, I can't take on another thing right now. So you and I were in. So this is the thing for any of you that have or want to have a business with a friend. It is magnificent and beautiful to have someone to share that journey with. Bridget and I would both say that. It's fabulous. Usually it works like a relationship, that when one person is, you know, in high, you know, as Carly Marie would call it, super mode, one person's in, like, bear, I've got to cringe under the, you know, deep into my family.
Crawl under the rock.
Yeah. And so we're always in this opposite but equal flow, largely, is how it works. And I think it works magically. And Bridget is now coming out. You're starting to come out of the baby phase. So Pearl's nearly 1. And I think there's something that happens in women's bodies around that age 1, that first year of life, where they're hopefully, if they've done it consciously and with enough love and grace, more integrated into the new identity and who they are as this mother of however many children this is. And it stops being such a struggle and starts being an under the wing situation. And so when it's under the wing and under the identity and less learning who that identity is, it frees up energy, and you start to then look at, who am I now? What do I want? Where do I want to be in this world? You know, and it starts to open the energy that was largely potentially non-existent beforehand. So as your children start walking, I think that our inner, you know, toddler finds equal legs. Just that it'll move into another area of life. So Bridget was wanting to put more energy into nourishing the mother and do some like you're doing an amazing triggers. What is it? Tussle with your triggers.
Tussle with your triggers, yeah.
Masterclass, and we're running the retreat, and there's a few other things. And we're, you know, when one of us is in like creative mood, we're like bang 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 bang. This would be amazing. This would lights me up. I'd love to do this. You know, blah blah blah. And I was like, fuck. I so want that for you, Bridge, and I so want it for nourishing the mother. And I had to really sit with my own sense of guilt and shame for perceiving that I wasn't showing up, because that's my thing, right? Is that if I commit to something, I will show up for it. I'm exceptionally disciplined in goal-oriented outcomes. But I knew that what I had right now was enough, and the creativity within me wasn't feeling called to open up into nourishing the mother. I'd felt like I'd invested a huge amount of that through the process of homeschooling and doing Make Lemonade with nourishing the mother. And like, I went through a fucking rite of passage doing that, which is so beautiful, because work is home and home is work, and the two of them work beautifully and collaboratively together. But I turned myself inside out and up-leveled everything with that, what felt like internally, and then also reflectively through the business. And then I could feel my energy. Then Queen School, my live round of Queen School started, which always takes an enormous amount of energy, swings back the other way. And with that, really, as those two things kind of settled and mingled in together, I just settled into my body, where I went, I know where my next fanning of the flames is. I know where my flame of desire and creativity is. And right now, it's over here in writing a book. And what I've got going on now is full enough that I don't want to continue to add into it when my creative flame is over here. And I trust that process, like you were saying, of following that creativity, to know that when I honor its burning, that it will burn out, and then it moves into the next layer of purpose, and it swung into Make Lemonade and Nourishing the Mother, and inspired through education and children and community. And now it's swung back through into relationship and book writing for me. So I really want to write a book. And I've been fucking talking about writing a book. How long have you known me? Like, I have been talking about writing a book
and you started writing one, like about 4 or 5 years ago, you started writing one too.
Yeah. And then just quit on it because I stopped feeling it. Like, forever I've been saying that. And I was like waiting and waiting and waiting. And I was like, no, I'm ready now. I'm ready to do this. I'm ready. Queen School is like fucking epic and rocking my world. And I'm feeling so solid now in what I have to offer, because that's a process of, very gingerly putting yourself out to the world, this thing that feels most precious to you, knowing that it could be torn apart. And look, sometimes that's what's going to happen. And the flip of that is what comes back tenfold when you're willing to share what is most meaningful and deeply inspiring to you, is you do get tenfold back. And I was like, okay, I think I can prove to myself enough that this is pretty amazing and shouldn't be kept just to myself. So
excited.
Want to write a book.
Yeah.
But because of that, let me just lay out for you, can you have it all? Let me tell you what I'm doing. I have 4 children who range from 14 down to 2. I'm a full-time stay-at-home mum. So yes, my husband is home working with COVID, but he's gone down to 4 days just in this last couple of weeks. So he's got one Wednesday off a week, which, is actually great for me. But largely he's 9 to 5, can't be present with anybody except I squeeze in my lives during his lunch break. So when I show up for Queen's School and other lives, that usually it's in his lunch break. That's how our scheduling goes. So I've got Queen's School running live and all of the facilitation that goes with that. I've got Embark, which is where I teach a group of women how to lead embodied, how to coach embodied, how to run sacred circle space. So it feels to me like the culmination of 20 years of coaching rolled into one group, and I'm showing up for that anywhere between 2 and 4 lives and facilitation every month with that. I have a Soften group, which was a 6-month journey of leading women into their softening with at-home practices and then live facilitation. I have a women's circle that was in person, and then I had to move into an online space, and so I'm holding space online now. That was a huge learning curve, and now running also monthly circles for that. I've had a couple of Blessing Way bookings, which then Mama Blessings, which then turned into also virtual experiences, which is another up-leveling. So I've had 2 this month of those. Then I've do all of my coaching clients, and then I have one-off like phone conversation or, Zoom conversation coachings. And then we have Nourishing the Mother with a weekly podcast and a membership group that we continue to show up in every single week with facilitation and monthly courses or offerings and anything that's additional to that. Like, that's a fucking shit ton.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my body practice, my relationship is immensely purposeful for me to empower. So I spend a lot of time there. So can you have it all? I have a fantastic connection with my body. I have an amazing relationship. I have a rocking sex life. I have 4 kids who I adore the ground they walk on, and our connection and their thriving is front and foremost of my drive and purpose every day. I have a business where I love this service that I feel I'm so graced to be able to meet other women in these spaces. I can't imagine asking for something other than that. That's my perfect life. Can you have it all? I feel like I do. It doesn't look like the white mansion and, I don't know, 5 overseas holidays every year. It might one day. But right now it looks like largely just a whole fucking lot of joy and heart explosions in my work, in my home, in my body, in my relationship, in my learning. Like, what else is there for me? There's like
so good.
Like there's nothing.
Yeah, and you and I had this conversation. I remember like a few months ago, you and I were like, pretty much love my life. I don't really want to change anything. I don't know what it was in the context of. Do you remember? We're having this conversation.
I do remember that. I do vaguely remember the conversation, but I don't remember what it was in context.
But it's just that thing, and that's also the beautiful place to create from, right? As well, because you're creating already from feeling pretty fucking grateful.
I feel immensely grateful. There's not. I really, really don't sit in, as far as I'm aware, a place of enormous amount of pride. I just really feel incredibly grateful to you and I for just fucking doing the hard yards of just showing up when we didn't know what it was, when there was no financial return, when we had no fucking idea about tech and websites and social media, when we blundered our way through a bajillion startup processes and I have the most enormous amount of gratitude for the you and I that just kept showing up. And so I kind of feel like it's a fucking shit ton what I've got going on at the moment, and it feels full, and it requires next level planning and communications in my family. I don't want to add another up leveling of business onto it because I want to carve out time for book writing. So I'm getting up at 5 every morning to get 2 hours of book writing in every morning. because when else am I going to do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So here we are at 20 to 10 at night, and I'm still working. And I'll probably get up to a toddler once or twice during the night. And I'll be up at 5 a.m. to write my book. And I'll still coach. I'll still show up for a live. I'll still show up for the couple sessions or the whatever one-on-one sessions. I'll, you know, like.
And you know what keeps you speaking to you when you say that is that truth, that energy is infinite when you know the source, because you're plugged into source. So your human body is vibrating with vitality because you are so fucking aligned, right?
Yes, this is my point. Yes, exactly. It's this. Doesn't mean it's easeful. No, because all of those things require up-leveling. They require decluttering old beliefs. They require putting in place structures that ensure that it can be healthful in its pursuit and not a burnout. You know, like all of those things still require practice and structure. Like you don't just become the person for whom that life is easy, but there's processes and building up that gets you there. But I don't know, like you choose your shit show, don't you, really?
Yeah, yeah.
So can you have it all? I think you can, but not as you are. As you are has the reality as you are. To change your reality requires chucking out and decluttering like our wardrobes, all of the
like
shit.
Your habits, you know, like the stuff, like as I was saying about how I am in my home and like having a laser focus on what's working and what's not. And
yeah, exactly.
Like being willing to put that lens of humility often on where can I shift and change this and how can I, you know, better myself through this.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want you to listen to the list of things that I reel off and think, oh, God, you know, fuck, I could never do that. Or conversely, well, surely, you know, her parenting is shit or her kid's relationship isn't as shit. Like, we're all going to make those projections, right? Yeah. Like, I don't want it to feel like this monumental mountain that somehow you're never allowed to climb or something. I think it's something we all have access to. I think you really and truly have an opportunity like never before in this lifetime to do exactly what you want to do. You just have to actually work out what you want to do. Like you, Bridget, where do you want to spend your energy? You know, like where? Get really clear on what that is and clear everything else that says you can't. And I mean, look, on top of that, I'm also looking at, are we homeschooling? So I'm not looking at anything that I'm doing and thinking it revolves around not having my children. Like Gwenny pops in and out of my lives all of the time, all of the time. I coach in and around my children. My kids fully know Mum's off to do a live. Cool, we'll catch you when you're done and we'll play a card game. Or Mum, can you take me to do this or that afterwards? Like they're totally on board. They totally get it. They love seeing it. They're part of it as much as is possible. I try to blur lines rather than keep them cemented. I don't think that homeschooling will make that harder because I think we have this, for those of you that have really little kids and kids who are not really involved in the community in primary school, you think the busiest time is preschool and when they're babies. And it's really fucking not. Like the busiest time is primary, later primary, middle to late primary, and high school. It is fucking manic, particularly when you have multiple children. Like manic, next level manic. Like the need to get everybody everywhere for, you know, you've got a friend, you've got training, you've got a coach session, you've got an exam, you've got this coming up, you've got a dance class, you've got swimming, it is like you think that, they'll be at school and, you know, I'll get my work done and then
time.
yeah, and then, you know, we'll be home and we'll just be so connected. Largely, it's the opposite. I can tell you wholeheartedly that what I've listened to from mums that I'm in school with, saying in this COVID pause and then coming back in is I don't know. What I've recognized is being home with my children, how much more connected we are. And I realized that we were so busy. We'd do school, pick up, get to the things, get home, and I'd be so busy. I'd be like, blank out, please go put yourselves in front of a screen because I'm done. I'm exhausted. And I think that's what happens. We do work, we do school, we're exhausted from running everyone around, we're out. Where's the connection? You know, like you have to still consciously seek it. So this is just me ruminating as I'm considering what my life looks like post-COVID. What is it that I really carefully want to put back in? But for me, it's all part of this is that if you're running the fantasy that at some point in the future you will have more time, it's a fucking fantasy. That is not a truth. Like at all. I think the most amount of time I have is when I'm quiet at home with my 2-year-old. And even quieter still, if I have my 5 or 6-year-old around who is just her best friend and delightful, and we get to flow together and no one's having tantrums at the end of school or tantrums to get to school, and I'm not frazzled by 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're not running to 1,000 different things after. Like, the perception of time is so funky in our society, and the perception of just that, you know, when the kids are older, when I don't have the kids around, I'm like, I just don't see that as my truth anymore. This time in COVID, my work is doubled. But I have 4 children that I'm homeschooling. Like, it's not who you have at your feet. It's the separation or all of the blocks you have to the mingling and the requirements for the setup or the structure. So I'm up at 5 and I'm up now till 10, 11 o'clock at night. That's my choice. I get to be present in these pockets and I still get to do work. You know, like, it's all choice. You still get to choose. I don't believe that we're at the mercy of anything other than our own psyche ever.
And also the narratives that might keep those stories like comfortable, like the narrative around needing to get home from work and exhausted and flat out, just need to zonk on the couch, or, like I'm full up and I can't deal with my kids, or, whatever those narratives are. They're there to be challenged so that you can find, a different way that is.
Well, I just think it's worth ruminating on, isn't it? Like, I just think it's worth having the conversations first with yourself. And that's always what I'm asking myself is, right.
Okay. Whatever feels hard, like if bedtime feels hard, we'll fucking change it. Because, how do I bring more connection here? How do I bring more fun here? How do I bring more ownership here for my kids because I'm resenting, getting everything ready for the next day? How can I give more power to them to help them set themselves up? All of those things come into it.
So glad you said that. No, and this is the point of practice. This is where I'm saying nothing is easeful. No one just gets lucky.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a thing. Like, you and I have this practice of, fuck, this is hard. Okay. Well, I'm not going to collapse and crumble and throw my hands up in the air like a toddler. Yeah. I'm going to go, whoa, shit, right. Get curious. That didn't work. Why didn't that work? What happened there? What needs to change? What is being needed? What am I being called to up level? Right, cool. So tomorrow I'm going to put these things in place. Bam, world changes. Turns out you are your world. Who knew?
It's kind of like, as you're saying, I'm thinking about like that label that gets bandied around all the time, like three-nager, and people kind of just finding their 3-year-old too much. I'm like, if you're going in there with that attitude, like that is the very reason why it feels hard. Because you are expecting a set of behaviors and you are coming up against them and rubbing up against them and unwilling to connect and making, throwing out labels, and without asking yourself, what does this child in front of me need? What boundaries do I need to be able to relate better to this child who's having challenges, right? Like, again, it's that thing, how do I set myself up to meet this as opposed to make that problem outside of me or make You know, like it's the same thing.
Yeah. No, it totally is. Sorry, I was having a train of thought and then I realised I wasn't present to you and then I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
It's okay. We're probably at time now anyway, so we'll probably wrap this one up.
Yeah, so please tell us, Bridget, because you are stepping up and nourishing the mother and so beautifully and graciously said, I get it. And Julie, I want you to have that time too. So, you know, I'm going to take the reins, so to speak, with nourishing the mother. I'm still going to be here, but just not in creative raw.
I think this topic actually came up. This idea came up in my this idea for this concept of tussle with your triggers actually came to me when I've been doing that practice with my husband. So as part of Queen School, you know, kind of noticing when you previously might close and instead opening your body and like meeting the trigger. And like, you know, for my husband, we have a lot of play, bringing play into what feels triggered. And then I thought, actually, this is true for a relationship. And so how do I bring a set of tools and teaching to that as a parenting dynamic? And so that's what I'm going to be teaching, is a 90-minute live on a whole different host of things around triggers, what they are, what they feel like in your body, patterns that can come up, understanding our children's values, understanding our own, noticing when we project on our children, understanding the family dynamic and the function of triggers, and fantasies and how fantasies will make sure that we run right into our triggers again, why our children are designed to trigger us, the benefits that they get out of it and what we get out of it. So just a whole host of stuff, kind of like a 101. So I am putting that together now, and that's going to be on Thursday the 21st of May at 8 o'clock. So if you want to immerse yourself in that, please hop on nourishingthemother.com.au. Actually, just hop on socials and you'll find a link to that one. And I would
tussle with your triggers. I think it'd be fabulous.
Hop in there with me and we can, and I think it's a beautiful time to be doing it too now, because we are stretching out of our world and there are those triggers that come up around transitions, which I know
totally
a lot of parents, it can get big.
Totally. And you're completely masterful at working with triggers. So, yes, you should be teaching that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. So, yeah.
And then we've got our retreat coming up.
We do. Our retreat's on the 31st, yep.
Yeah. So we're going to be spending 4 hours moving you through practices and journaling processes to really connect in with the soul in the heart of your mother. You, the mother. So you can come. Yeah, I really think so. So, and be beautiful for you and I to carve out Sunday morning together, which will be lovely. So that's on May the 31st from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. You can jump in and out. You can blank your screen. There may or may not be little people with you. I don't think that should stop you. As I said to the women in Women's Circle, I would rather that you honoured yourself by being here and just let it be messy. Stop the division. Let it be whatever it is and show up for your practice anyway. We don't need to wait till we don't have kids in order to be who we are. So, come as you are to that and receive the medicine that you need to at that time. And just let that take you somewhere else. So Mother Soul Retreat, you can find out about on socials as well as nourishingthemother.com.au.
Yes, and to meet with you, Jules,
is thepleasurenutritionist.com, and you, Bridge?
Suburban.com. Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
And if you want to support Nourishing the Mother and all the late nights, the early mornings, the blood, sweat and tears we pour into our art, then please go to patreon.com/NTM podcast and become our patron. As a patron, you're helping all of the cost of operating this podcast, the hosting, the editing, the transcription, helping all of that be completely covered, and joining a community who are all about honouring our journeys and continuing to open. The more support we have, the longer we can last. So become a patron. We'd love to have you. Go to patreon.com/NTM podcast. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for listening, and please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.